This opening half hour brought to you by good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory, great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee, and a terrific service department that takes care of everything from quick lane to inspections, routine, difficult. They handle it all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Okay, so it is a great way to open any week, and that is to talk to the incomparable Phil Steele. Phil, welcome back. So great to hear you again.
Hey, Steve, always good to hear your voice. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. So let's get to the Big Ten right away out of the gate. You've been able to put out your rankings as to what you think, where you think people are going to end up finishing in this thing. So you've got Ohio State in the one spot. Why do you have Ohio State in the one spot?
Actually, Steve, I've got some team that you might be familiar with in the number one spot, and that's Penn State.
Oh, okay. So you got Penn State in there. Okay, good. So you got Penn State in there. Okay. Read the article wrong. So what is look, Penn State has so many guys back. There's no question about that. When all these guys came back, it reminded me of the 86 team because 85 everybody came back. This seems like the same pattern with Penn State.
Yeah, and it also seems like the same pattern as what we've seen from the Big Ten the last 2 years. Ohio State had everybody return last year, Michigan the year before, and those two teams took advantage of the veteran leadership. You look at the top teams in the Big Ten, Ohio State lost 15 draft picks, Michigan lost 8. When you look at Penn State, they've got my number one rated offensive line, number one set of running backs. They've got their quarterback back, my number 3 defensive line, number 6 linebackers, number 4 DBs. They really are a complete team. They do have to play Ohio State on the road, but they've played Ohio State tough, and I think the more veteran teams got a shot at breaking through this year.
Yeah, and with Ohio State, what does it mean to you that Julian Sayin takes over a quarterback, in some ways to some people an unknown entity?
I think at the end of the year he'll be one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Just like the Ohio State quarterback always is, especially with the supporting cast that they have. But there is a learning curve, and you're talking about Drew Allar is a senior, been through the fire, had some great stats, and ready to go. Sayin is a guy who is a first-time starter, and so this is going to be his first time playing among the crowds that he's got to face.
I want to ask you about Indiana. Indiana last year was the perfect example of the team that got its college football playoff spot, played really well. Then at the end, they finally lost to Ohio State. Michigan in the second half played much better. Then Notre Dame knocked them out. Where are they this year with Kurt Zignetti's team?
I think they're going to be good. I don't think they're going to match last year's record, but they are really good. And, when I went through the team position by position with Coach Zignetti, I like Mendoza at QB. I thought that Curtis Rourke, though, was outstanding last year. Maybe just a little back there, but you look at the running back core they had in Roman Hemby. I think they've got a better running back core than they had last year. The receiving core, they've got their top 2 guys back, plus they've got some outstanding recruits coming in. They could be even better than last year receiving core. You look at the offensive line, and it's another unit which looks upgraded over last year. Defensively, defensive line, linebacker, DBs, all look like they could potentially be upgraded. I think that Indiana's a team that might be a little more talented than last year's squad, but might not match the record. They have some tough games. They have to play Iowa on the road, Oregon on the road, Penn State on the road. So the schedule's a little bit tougher than it was last year.
How do you look at Michigan now? Because Bryce Underwood's going to be the guy that takes over. They did lose a lot on defense. Doesn't mean they don't have a lot coming back on defense, but where do you view them in this mix?
Yeah, I think they're going to be one of the top defenses in the country still. You look up front, they've got Derek Moore at defensive end, Rashawn Benny at tackle, Barham at linebacker. They still have one of the top defenses in the country. Offensively, I do think they take a step back, though. The offensive line, I've got question marks about. They look okay, maybe at the center, left guard. right guard, but the right guard and left tackle spots up in the air. They lose their top 2 receivers from last year. They lose their top 2 running backs from last year. So there are some questions with Michigan, but their schedule's pretty manageable. They do have to play USC on the road, but their other road games, Steve, they're playing Maryland, Northwestern, Michigan State. All those are winnable. They get the other games in the big house. They do have to play Nebraska, USC, and Oklahoma on the road. I think Michigan is a legitimate contender in the Big Ten, but I didn't put them up there in my top 2 or 3.
No, and up there, of course, will be Oregon. There's no Dylan Gabriel, so this opens the door for Dante Moore. Good returning running back. Wasn't the starter last year, Whittingham. I think is a good player. But they did lose Stewart, one of their wideouts for the season. How is the impact going to be for Oregon?
Yeah, and they lost their top 2 receivers as well from last year, and Tez Johnson and Holden. So the receiving core is one that's a little bit of a question mark coming in, but they still are very talented. You just look at the guys like DeCorian Moore, for example, the true freshman coming in, number 1 wide receiver out of high school. We saw last year what true freshman wide receivers can do, so I think he'll have a big year. I think when you look at the quarterback position, I don't think Dante Moore is going to match Dylan Gabriel's numbers. I mean, Gabriel hit 73% with 30 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions on the year. Dante Moore was okay at UCLA in his first year. He has had another year to absorb the system, but I don't think he'll match Gabriel's numbers. But Oregon's a good team, and you just look at the talent Dan Lanning is compiling there, and each of the units rank in my top 20, with the exception of quarterback, because Dante Moore's not as experienced as the rest. But they'll be up there, I think, contending in the Big Ten.
Look, they got Batchelor back at linebacker. Uyunglele is now back at defensive end. I mean, they've still got a lot of talent on that team. They are really good.
Yeah, and they had in Dylan Thieneman from Purdue, who, of course, took the Big Ten by storm 2 years ago, and I think he's going to be a big upgrade for that secondary.
He's a terrific safety. I mean, you watch him play safety. Certain guys you and I both know how to play. Dylan Thieneman knows how to play. All right, Arch Manning. How do you view Arch Manning? You go through 9 different data points on people and so forth. How do you view him?
I think he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country. I like the fact that, he was patient enough, stayed in the same system. This is actually his 3rd year now in the Texas system. I like that. We know he's got the arm to hit the deep ball, and we saw it when he played last year. He's also a very dangerous runner. He's not Peyton Manning running the football. He's Arch Manning, and we saw a couple of big touchdown runs last year. I think he's got a really good supporting cast around him. He's a very talented QB, and he's going to put up some stats. And Texas plays a very manageable schedule this year, so I think he's going to have a very good year this year. I don't know if he's going to be, the top pick in the draft or anything like that, but I do think he's right at the top.
No, I think he's a really good player. It's just the only question is he hasn't played a lot, which is interesting. I love I'm with you, though. I love the patience. He's waited for his moment. It's allowed him to mature. Now, when you look at the SEC in total, it's going to be the Georgias, the Alabamas. Texas now is one of those teams. Who challenges Texas in the SEC?
Yeah, I think the most talented team in the SEC might be Texas, but I've got them coming in second, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But also watch Alabama. Kalen DeBoer's in his second year at Washington. They played in the national title game. I like the overall talent they have. They are breaking in a new quarterback, but Ty Simpson was impressive at the Manning Passing Academy, and I think he's going to do well with the supporting cast they have. Alabama's a threat, but I went with Georgia to win the SEC this year. And part of the reason, Steve, is schedule. You look at last year, Georgia played a murderous schedule. They had to play Alabama, Texas, and Mississippi all on the road, and they lost 2 of those 3 games. Yep. Well, guess what? This year their toughest 3 games are the same 3 teams, but they get them all at home. And Georgia hasn't lost a home game in 5 years. So I think Georgia takes care of business between the hedges. You look at the road games this year, Tennessee, winnable, especially with their Nico being gone at the quarterback spot. Auburn, winnable on the road. Florida's in Jacksonville, Mississippi State, and Georgia Tech. So I think when you look at Georgia overall, I've got them favored in all 12 games this year, and they're my favorite to win the SEC. The fact they host Texas, to me, is the key to them winning it.
Yeah, that's one thing about Nico transferring. He transferred to UCLA. That means on October 4th, I have to say that name for 4 hours.
I don't envy you, Steve. Don't envy you.
There's going to be a lot of back goes Nico. It seems to roll off easier for whatever reason. But it's interesting you bring up the schedule part of it. People ask me all the time about, where I think certain people will finish. And the first thing I bring up is, who do you play? Who don't you play? And the people you do play, where do you play? See, and that's a part that I think a lot of people don't bring those three factors in as to what a team's record can be. Who do you play? Who don't you play? And the ones you play, where do you play them?
Yeah, and I think that had a big factor in Indiana last year with the success that they had. They did play Michigan and they did play Ohio State, but other than that, did not play any of the top teams really in the Big Ten. So I think who you play, where you play, as you mentioned, Steve, that has a big impact. And as far as the Big Ten goes, probably the best schedule this year actually goes to Michigan. They do play Ohio State and they do play USC, but they don't play Oregon, they don't play Indiana, they don't play Illinois, they don't play Iowa. So they don't play numerous teams that are going to be contenders. So Michigan's actually got a really good schedule this year. The toughest schedule, how about Wisconsin? Oh, my goodness. They play Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Washington, Minnesota. They play one team that's at the very bottom, and that would be Maryland. But I think Wisconsin and I'm not even counting in Alabama in the non-conference schedule for them.
Let me ask you something. Have you done anything about the West Coast travel? And I don't mean Eastern teams going west, because they do that once, right? Penn State's doing it one every single year, and that's the way it is for most teams. But I'm talking about the West Coast teams repeatedly having to go east. Do you factor that in at all, especially late in the year?
Yeah, I think you have to factor it in. And so what I do, Steve, is I usually go through the schedule sometime in March after I've got my preliminary power ratings done, go through all the games, and then I do look at the scheduling advantage. Now, like Oregon, for example, this year, they do play Penn State on the road, but the next week they have a bye.
Right.
So I don't know if the travel's going to affect them that much. And they also play Iowa on the road this year, but the week prior to that they have a bye. So it sort of discounts the travel, I think, a little bit if you've got the bye factored in there. But if a team is playing, let's say, Oregon, they do play at Northwestern, travel back home, play Oregon State, then play Penn State. So I think that schedule helps out Penn State there, especially with the fact Penn State's off a bye.
Yeah. Because last year, a year ago in the Big Ten schedule, 14 Eastern teams went west. Of those 14, 8 had bye weeks the next week, including Penn State after USC. And the other 6 played home games. So they've at least tried to make it workable for the Eastern teams. But it's more difficult for the Western teams coming east because they have to play more games coming east as opposed to one.
And the time change, Steve, because you're generally, a lot of times you're playing first thing in the morning. If it's a 12 o'clock noon game, you're playing at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and Penn State played UCLA at noon last year here, which was 9 a.m. for them. Okay, yeah. So let's get to the ACC. Clemson's really good, especially that defensive front and Klubnik. Are they the class of the ACC going in?
Yes, they are. And, one thing I went through this year, Steve, and I was looking at continuity of teams. This is the transfer portal era. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I was talking to Coastal Carolina's coach, Tim Beck, and I said, well, Coach, last year you had 69 new players, but now it's year 3, more stability, so you should be in good shape. He's like, well, Phil, this year we got 68 new players. I'm like, wow, that's just so much transition. And you take a look at the teams that had great success last year. Army and Navy had tremendous success in the American Conference. They don't hit the transfer portal. Clemson, very little use of the transfer portal. Iowa State, very little use of the transfer portal. Even Ohio State, while they nitpick certain star players from the portal, the bulk of the team signed there as freshmen. And I think that's an advantage for Clemson, is that these are all players that have been signed with Clemson as freshmen, playing as freshmen. They did bring in some portal players like Will Held coming over from Purdue, Jeremiah Alexander coming in from Alabama on the defense. Offensively, they added Tristan Smith from Southeast Missouri State. But I think the biggest difference between Clemson last year and the previous 2 years was the receiving core. 2 years ago, the receivers were banged up, injured. Last year, they were vastly improved, and now you got Kate Klubnik thrown to one of the best receiving cores in the country, an outstanding offensive line. As you touched on, Steve, the defense is great, and the schedule's there. And this is a veteran team. They've got 17 returning starters, and these guys were all recruited by Clemson, playing for Sweeney. I think I've got them favored in all 12 games. I think they go 12-0 this year.
Yeah, they very well could do that, no question. And not only that, but I look at what he's done because Penn State is also judicious with the transfer portal.
Yes.
And I think that you're finding last year the final four teams were Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. And all four had one thing in common to me. They had roster retention. And and sometimes, do you agree with that?
100%, Steve. And in fact, that popped up in, I talked to all the head coaches. So I talked about we're not able to always get 136 in. I think I got 126, 127 in this year. There's a couple we couldn't coordinate with because it was all in 1 month. But I threw that theory out to almost every single coach. I said, Coach, the theory I'm surmising here is that teams that have the best cohesiveness, little amount of change, it did the best. And the majority of them came back with, you might have a point there, Phil. And you look at last year, Army, Navy, Clemson, Iowa State, all were teams that had very little turnover and they added some key players. But yes, I love the retention factor, the cohesiveness, the team. It's more about the team, whereas the other ones that are bringing in 69, 70 players, it's more like you're bringing in a bunch of mercenaries.
Yeah, and not only that, but you don't know what your locker room looks like. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Right, what your locker room looks like.
And, two teams in particular, Steve, I want to mention, West Virginia. Everybody's beating me up for picking West Virginia last in the Big 12. But when I talked to Coach Richrod and went over the roster with him, I'm like, okay, what about this guy? He's like, Phil, I haven't seen him yet. He's coming in over the summer. Phil, I haven't seen him yet. He's coming in over the summer. Yeah. How the heck do you build a team when everybody's coming in after spring practice?
I know. The day they announced that he took the job, I think 39 guys went to the transfer portal, literally. So they didn't retain anybody. Speaking of the Big 12, who gets the nod there?
You don't want to be picked first, right? After last year.
After last year.
It seemed like
Arizona State was, 15th? According to them?
Yeah, they were picked last. In fact, the Big 12's not even doing a media poll this year because of that. All the teams that were picked at the top finish at the bottom. All the teams that finish at the bottom finish at the top. But the three teams I went with this year, Steve, I went with Baylor. I think Dave Aranda's doing a tremendous job there. They've got a veteran quarterback in Sawyer Robertson. They've got Aranda calling the defense, plenty of talent at the skill positions, and the schedule. Going back to what you had touched on, the schedule really sets up well. You look at their road games, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Arizona, all fall in the winnable category. Then Utah. Utah had so many close losses last year. They're off a rare losing year. But last year, their problem, I think, was at the quarterback position and the fact that, Cam Rising, is he coming back? Is he not coming back? At the end of the year, they were down to a fifth-string quarterback who started the last two games. Now they've got continuity at quarterback with Devin Dampier coming over from New Mexico, one of the best offense lines in the country. They always have one of the best defenses. And last year, they lost a lot of close games. I always do an article, Close Wins, Close Losses. It tells you a team is much better than its record, and that was Utah last year. I think they're going to be at the top. And then Iowa State, going back to what we talked about with the Armies, the Navies, the Penn States, Clemsons. Iowa State's that type of team. Matt Campbell says, we retain a lot of players. Players don't come. Maybe they don't know we're here. We're located nowhere. Nobody's poaching their players from them. They've got the bulk of their talent coming back from what might have been the best team in the Big 12 last year. I think Iowa State, Matt Campbell got them to their first double-digit winning season in 133 years of football, and they could be even better this year.
That's one of the better developmental programs in the country right there, Iowa State. He does a great job of taking a guy from day one, and they're one or two stars up by the time he's done.
Absolutely. And he did a great job at Toledo as well.
Oh, no doubt.
The job he's done at Iowa State's phenomenal.
Phil, always a pleasure. I hope this is the first of many talks this season.
It should be, Steve. I always enjoy talking, and I always learn something when I talk to you. So it's great to hear your voice again, and I really appreciate it. Can't wait for the football season. How do you feel about Penn State this year?
One of the keys after seeing a 16-game season last year, which I did, you have to be a deep team. Right, and to me, that's the big part with Penn State. I feel like across the board, with maybe one or two exceptions, they're a deep team. If you're a deeper team, you can handle a schedule.
Love it. I agree with you 100% there, Steve. And since I picked them first in the magazine, I'll be a Penn State fan this year. Everybody asks me who's my favorite team. I always say whoever I pick higher than everybody else.
Good. Welcome aboard. Great to have you. Phil, thank you so much, and we'll talk here in a few more weeks.
All right, sounds good, Steve. Steve, looking forward to it, buddy.
Bet. The great Phil Steele. His magazine is out there now. Okay, I mean, and this is just a great time to get to it because his research is exhaustive and constant. Half hour brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.